Hi, I'm Ben Rice.
And I'm Bryce Duskett.
We're from the Norris FFA, and we're here at ShadowBrook Farms, here to interview Sharuth about her daily farm life.
When did your farm begin?
We started our farm in 17 years ago. What was that, 1995, I think, if I'm counting right.
And how involved is your family?
Well, my youngest son has a little egg operation, so he is raising some chickens and selling his own eggs. And in the past, our two older boys worked on the farm by growing watermelons or doing little projects on the farm to make money. Our middle son, who's 16, works construction with his dad and some farming work here as well, just harvesting vegetables, but it's basically just during the summer.
What was your motivation for wanting to become a farmer?
I had kind of a rural experience as a child with my grandfather who lived in the Netherlands, and he had a big garden, and I loved, just following him around. And he would always go to his neighbors that had cows and made cheese, and I just kind of loved that whole lifestyle. So I guess I was just a romantic, liked agriculture, and was really into animal husbandry. Had goats growing up. Kind of got me started. And then I met my husband at the University of California at Santa Cruz, and we decided to start the farm. He was from Nebraska. He was from Lincoln.
All right, so take us through a daily life on the farm. What does that all entail?
Well, for me personally now, I mostly do goats and dairying. So I get up in the morning and milk goats, or if I have a day that I'm making cheese, I have an employee that milks the goats, and then I would just go and fill up the buckets that we transport the milk. And right now we're making cheese at the university, so I would transport milk to the university and offload it and pasteurize it and process the cheese. And that's usually about a 6-hour day or so at the university, and then maybe come back and do chores and maybe package some cheese. So generally in the summer, I think our daily workload is 12 hours, 14 hours on weekends when we do the farmers market. So a lot of work. We don't have a day off during the summer.
Now you mentioned you have goats. What else do you guys have? Do you have other crops?
Yeah, we also grow vegetables, and I used to be a lot more involved with the vegetable production, but now my husband does that with a crew of employees and apprentices.
All right, well, what do you mainly specialize in here? And what would you say is your most profitable commodity?
Okay, I think we're known for our salad mixes. At the farmers market, we've been selling them for about 17 years. Lettuces like baby lettuces and arugula and mixed greens, we do that bulk and just sell it to our customers by the pound. That's probably our most known crop that we produce, but we grow lots of different vegetables, beets and carrots and normal cucumbers and tomatoes and things like that as well. We don't grow sweet corn though, because we basically let other people grow that in Nebraska. We're kind of known for the gourmet veggies. And then the goat cheese, that's the newest thing. We do artisan goat cheeses.
Now how do you guys deal with pests and diseases?
In the vegetables, we're organic, so we can't actually use synthetic pesticides. So we do a bunch of different things. Exclusion is one thing that we do, and that's basically covers that we put on the crops to protect them so insects can't get to them. They're called floating row covers, and it's like a woven fabric. So that's one thing that we do. Diverse crops. So if you have a lot of diversity in your fields, then you're going to bring in a lot more natural enemies, insects that eat other insects, and not have probably as big of a problem with pests. So just cultural practices. For grasshoppers, we keep things mowed around the edges because grasshoppers like to have tall weeds to kind of hang out in. So just by doing simple things like mowing, you can control grasshoppers. We do use a little bit of biological control in our greenhouses, using certain insects to eat other insects. Everyone knows the story of the ladybug, right? That little larva, the ladybug, eat the aphid babies. Well, we do that, but we actually don't introduce ladybugs. We just kind of depend on the wild ones. But we have introduced mites, a predator mite species that eats other mites, the two-spotted spider mite, which is a pest on things like eggplant and peppers in our greenhouses, cucumbers in our greenhouses. And we've had some pretty good success, although those little predators don't do well when it's really hot. So you have to kind of work with the seasons to use them. But that's some examples.
Now, has farming always been your main source of income, or have you had other jobs along the way?
Yeah, my husband also has a construction business that kind of supports our farming habit, we joke. But we're trying. The farm, actually, the vegetables are now carrying themselves pretty well. And the newest part of our business is the goats, and we're still, trying to figure out how to break even with them. But hopefully someday soon we'll be making tons of money with goat cheese.
Now, fast forward to here in the future, with the growing technology in farming, how do you guys incorporate technology on your farm here?
Well, we're pretty low tech. we're pretty much hands-on. We do have a tractor for planting and cultivating, but a lot of hand weeding still takes place. So we're not what you would call a real modern, high-tech farm, but that's kind of the way we want it to be. I mean, we try to be efficient. We try to grow things so that we can cultivate as much as we can with the tractor, so we don't have to do as much hand weeding, for example, things like that. Or do like pre-irrigations where you irrigate first and then till shallow and then plant, so that hopefully all that first flush of weeds is controlled that way. So there's things you can do organically because we can't use herbicides. So that's not, we do mulching. Try to be as efficient as we possibly can so that we can hopefully make a little bit more money, because labor, costs money.
What would you say is the most beneficial change from the past till now on the farm?
Well, I think I think probably the biggest thing that's helped us is extending our season. So building our high tunnels. When we first started, we had a normal Nebraska season to grow and produce our products, and now we've pretty much been able to increase that growing season by about 6 weeks, the beginning and the end of our season, by these high tunnels, which are passively heated just through solar gain, no propane. So that's huge. I mean, they're pretty inexpensive to build, and it's really given us a lot more growing time in a climate that obviously is a little shorter than a lot of places in the country.
Now, what's the most challenging part about farming, and maybe with the organic aspect of your farm?
Yeah, I think organic farming, the hardest thing is weeds, controlling weeds. Like I said before, it's expensive. Labor's really expensive, and because we can't use herbicides, we tend to use a lot more hand labor. And, that's a challenge for sure with, things like bindweed, for example, that are, just notorious for coming back and being really hard to control organically. So we've been, trying to incorporate interesting things like pigs, for example, to eat the roots of the bindweed and to kind of control that weed pest for us.
Now, farming entails lots of different things, and which aspect would you say you're most passionate about?
Well, we're pretty passionate about local, the whole concept of producing food for our local economy and the people that we know. So I don't know, I think that face value of knowing your farmer and knowing the customers that eat your product is really important to us. I think that's probably what keeps us going, seeing those same faces every week and seeing that they're happy with the product that we're providing.
Do you have any other community involvement besides just selling to them?
Yeah, we try to do a little bit of education through the farm by having tours. We have apprenticeship program during the season with students or young people usually that want to come and learn how to farm the way that we're doing it organically and with the animals, making cheese. And I think it's been fun having that educational component. We've also done some projects with schools, gardening projects. First Plymouth Preschool, we built a greenhouse, and then we did a little gardening project with the kids there. And my kids were going to Beatty Elementary, and we built some raised garden beds there and did a little garden club. And so I kind of like to stay active, in the community that way as well.
Now, looking on in the future, are there any crops or livestock that you've been thinking about getting into?
Well, the goats are pretty recent for us, so I think that's kind of been our newest focus. And we're trying to build a facility on the farm to make cheese, so that's pretty exciting. We did a Kickstarter project. I don't know if you're familiar with Kickstarter, but it's basically a mob funding online that you can get funding for a project that you come up with. And we made a video and raised $27,000 for our facility that we're building, so that's exciting. And I think that's probably going to keep me pretty busy. I don't think I need to add anything else. So yeah, we're just going to try to make this profitable and make some really great cheese.
Did you mention how many acres you guys have right now?
34.
Are you planning on expanding that number at all as we look into the future?
Yeah, that would be great, and we talk about that a lot. The only thing for us is that we're really close to town and the prices are really expensive, so we've kind of missed the boat. Like the property right next to us is selling for, pretty high prices for new development. So I don't think that we're really going to have the ability to buy more farm ground near us. If we did that, it would be more like hay ground somewhere, probably within a half-hour drive or something, that we could maybe produce some more hay for our animals, because right now we don't have enough land to produce the feed, and everyone knows feed prices are going up, and that's a challenge. But we're working with local farmers that do grow our feed in the area, so that's the next best thing.
Now, you say you're kind of limited for space, but in the future, would you like to expand your markets broader?
Yeah, we would definitely want to do that. And I think one of the things that we've, thought about is doing more educational components to our farm, where we can't really grow more, and we don't really even want to grow more necessarily, like more product. We do want to expand our cheese production, so maybe buying in milk from other farms. If there's another goat dairy that opens up, or a sheep dairy, and definitely a cow dairy, we're planning on buying cow's milk so that we can make other cheeses and expand our market, potential that way, rather than actually having more animals here on this piece of property, because we feel like we've pretty much hit the top of what we can, support on this land. And then doing more, educational things on the farm. We've talked about doing occasional restaurant where we have meals, farm meals on the farm, and doing more of a touristy, kind of thing like that, where we bring people on the farm and diversify in that way rather than producing more, because I think we do have a limit to the amount of land we can use.
Now, you mentioned you have kids. Are they looking to come back and farm? What's the management side look like this in the future?
Yeah, I'm not really expecting them to come back and farm. They're slightly intrigued by what we're doing. I think a couple of them are still somewhat interested in, the farm. I think they're attached to it maybe a little bit, but I don't think they expect to come back and work it necessarily. I think they kind of have their own ideas of what they want to do with their lives, which I support.
Now, do you have any predictions of where this organic farming is going in the future, and just what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think organic, is definitely growing. I think the awareness of food quality and just healthy, health conscious people wanting to eat, more local and maybe have less exposure to pesticides is something that's definitely growing. So I think there's potential for the market to expand. I think 20% annual growth is about what's been happening annually in the last 10 years, so that sounds good. But for me, way more important than that is just trying to be local, feeding our local population of people, and just having people be able to kind of keep food close to home. I think that's even more important than the organic movement to me. But
now, moving on to sustainability, what does that mean to you personally?
Well, to me it means that we can basically get everything we need right off of this piece of property. So building our own fertility, not having to outsource fertility, for example, or pesticides. I mean, that is really important. Obviously, if we can build what we need to produce our food right off of this farm, that's a huge step towards sustainability in my mind. And then also keeping the soil really healthy, so that it's producing well for many generations to come.
You touched a little bit on it, but what specific things are you doing here that help keep your farm sustainable?
Yeah, well, we do cover cropping. We build our soil through cover cropping, and also with the animal manures that we produce with the goat dairy, we compost that, and that also is being used to replenish our soils. So really, we don't need a lot of inputs off farm. We basically produce everything we need right here.
What are you going to make any changes to help you be more sustainable?
Yeah, well, one of the things I'd like to do now that we're building this cheese facility is figure out energy sustainability, and I'd really like to have like wind turbines or solar, so that I don't have to be dependent on an outside energy source, and that we don't have anything in the works right now. So in the future, that's something I'd like to improve.
And just some specific ShadowBrook questions. In your dairy parlor, how is have you done any modifications to that to improve that, or how is that advanced?
Boy, I wish that I would have known, you know, when I started how big we had to be profitable. Because when you build something like a dairy plant and you're just a small producer, you think, oh, 30 goats, that sounds like a lot, right? And we built our plant kind of thinking that 30 goats would be about what we were going to do. And now we're realizing we need to milk at least 100. And yeah, we're kind of feeling growing pains. But first we're going to try to produce enough cheese to support an expansion, and then we'll probably have to rebuild the barn and kind of upscale our parlor so that we can milk more goats efficiently, because we're definitely kind of hitting the top of what we can do right now.
Can you describe a little more about your on-site cheese facility and how you're going to fund that?
Yeah, so we did get a USDA grant as well. It's a value-added grant, and then this Kickstarter campaign that we did, we made almost $60,000 with those two grants. Well, Kickstarter's not really a grant, but yeah, so that was great, and we needed more, so we're probably going to have to come up with another $40,000 to $50,000 to complete the project of our own monies, but it's a good start. So we're pretty happy that we were able to get some funding to help us.
I noticed you have some older buildings here on the farm, and how have you redone those and reinvented?
That's part of being really naive and young. When you first buy a farm and you think, oh, how romantic, let's fix up all these old buildings. We've learned since then that it probably would have been a lot cheaper and simpler just to bulldoze the whole thing and start from scratch, and probably cheaper too, you know, because you end up trying to save old buildings, and it's not always the easiest way to go to get that to be a functional building. But we like, you know, the fact that we were trying to save our house, for example, and the barn. We had to straighten the barn because it was basically falling down when we moved here, and we put a new foundation under it to save it.
Now, how many employees do you guys have with your labor force?
Yeah, in the farm, like the vegetable farm operation, we have about 5 full-time field people, and then usually an apprentice or 2 each season. And then with the goats, I have 1 person that helps me, well, 1 and 1 part-time, so let's say 2 people that help with the goat milking during the week, and then 1 person that helps me make cheese. So 2 people, including myself, make cheese.
Okay, tell us where we're located here, and what about ShadowBrook makes it unique?
Okay, we are right outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, and it's pretty unique in that it's within the 3-mile limit of the city, so very close to town, actually, which is nice for, you know, our roadside stand, little store, and soon tasting room for the cheese. It's close enough that people can come from downtown Lincoln. It only takes about 15 minutes.
Thank you very much for being here and answering our questions.
Well, thanks for coming out.